All right, why are you running?
Why am I running? Well, I'm running to continue the work that we started in 2023. And that would be promoting freedom, family, and protecting kids.
Freedom, family, and protecting kids. Okay. Tell me a little bit about your priorities. I'm kind of probably the same answer, or is it different?
Priorities?
Yeah.
So if you go to my website, if you look at joemoss.com, there's a lot of different pro statements on there. So priorities would be, pro-constitution, pro-freedom, pro-parental rights as three, the top three. And so just making sure that in Ottawa County, we are cultivating a place where freedom rings and families can thrive.
Okay. Freedom or families can thrive.
Yep.
Tell me about you personally, like things you like to do, places you like to go.
Sure, yeah. So I grew up in Hudsonville. I have 6 younger brothers, so there are 7 boys in our family. I grew up working very hard, worked on a muck farm, and then worked concrete, and then went to college, and graduated with degrees in accounting and marketing.
Okay.
And you could say I'm a recovering accountant. I didn't love accounting that much. I still do it, but I had a passion for entrepreneurship. So I started a few companies, focused in technology. And so I'm still very, very busy on that side of things, and really enjoy it, but also really enjoy the work, serving the people as well. Yeah, and I love to ride my motorcycles. Yeah.
I heard about your motorcycles.
Yes.
I just wanted to.
2, I rebuilt them. They're both 1983. Yeah, one Honda, one Yamaha.
Tell me a little bit about why should people vote for you?
They should vote for me if they want to protect individual rights and make that a priority in Ottawa County. And one thing that we have really focused on over the last 18 months, or really longer if you count the campaign cycle in 22, is just being very proactive and very transparent on what our platform is, what our priorities are, and that they are pro-constitution, pro-freedom, and that we want to make sure that we maximize freedom for everyone living in Ottawa County.
Okay. Let me remember my last question, because that's 4 right now. All right, so like I said, for the people who are running for office for the first time versus the incumbents, I changed up the question just a little bit slightly to kind of better for the incumbents. So tell me a little bit about over the past year and a half to 2 years, what have you seen as your successes, or failures, or things you would like to have changed over that time?
Good question. We've definitely learned a lot. When the new board was elected by the people in 22, they were seated in 23. So we've been in office since January of 23. And most of the people who were elected, there were 8 new board members out of 11. And so those people they're not politicians. I'm not a politician. I've not been in politics before. I'm a business owner. And we had other people involved who were, teachers or nurses and social workers, things like that. So there's been a great opportunity to bring in a very new and healthy, diverse opinions into and life experience into the board. And that's really how local government is supposed to work. It's people from your local community coming in to help make decisions. And we want, that to represent our community members very well. And so we have focused on freedom and parental rights, and really digging in and looking very carefully at grants that come in and what strings are attached, and trying to do the very best we can, while also learning new systems and new processes. And then one great benefit is in Ottawa County we have excellent staff by and large, and so they do the majority of the actual day-to-day work for the county. Sometimes people ask, what exactly does a commissioner do? And they sometimes assume maybe we're there, running the payroll and making the day-to-day decisions. But that's definitely not, what we do. We are oversight, governance, direction. We set budgets and policy. So you could say that we are acting as the guardrails for the county. And there's 1,300 employees either in this building or around Ottawa County who are actually, boots on the ground, doing the hard work day in and day out.
So to follow up on some of the answers. So explain to me successes. I remember back in January when we first did our interview, you highlighted some successes. So out of that answer, I don't think I heard really success other than pro-Constitution or freedom.
Sure.
If you could.
So let me just pull on one a little bit. So one thing that we really prioritized was our veterans. And in the past, we've had a small veterans department, and it was run by some very dedicated individuals who I think were kind of working 1 day a week. And originally, or for a while, it was one person for 3 days, and then they added a fourth. And we really wanted to expand on that. There's a lot more that the county can be doing to serve veterans. So we started talking with other counties, either Muskegon and other nearby counties, other people we could learn from, and started talking to people in the community, and saw a need to actually expand that department. We were only spending, and I'm sure there's some ancillary stuff, but the core spending was $40,000 a year before 23. And so that was very small. So we've now hired a director and expanded that department and asked that they do everything they can with the state resources and other monies that they have access to really serve veterans more.
Would you say at this point, because obviously you've heard discussions from your director of the Veterans Department over there, do you find it being successful? Do you find
Yes.
it that they're moving the department forward? 'Cause
Yes.
obviously, I remember during the budget that you guys did increase it $200,000.
Something, yeah, I'd have to look to be sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you find that what they're doing successful?
Yes, yeah. We've had very excellent feedback from the community and from the director, and really are looking forward to seeing his team continue to build the department. And they have one-on-one interaction with a lot of veterans. And not just the veterans, but also their family members or their spouses, maybe even their kids. And so they are often working with people who are in some very difficult life situations. Veterans are not the type of people who are just out there looking for help, right? They're usually, they're pretty tough. Yeah. And so one thing that we've heard from veterans we've talked to and from the director and others is that, they are serving, in some cases, a vulnerable or a needy population. And so sometimes when a veteran comes in, they're looking for funding so that they can make their next, mortgage or rent payment, or they might be looking for housing. So there are real needs there, and they're working hard to continue to meet them and build upon it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, you highlighted the very kind of first answer that you're freedom and family and protecting kids. Obviously, I've read a lot of your signs out there.
Yep.
So
Yep.
explain to me what that means: freedom, family, and protecting kids.
What it means?
Well, yeah, like obviously it's a nice
Yes.
slogan, but
Yes.
explain to me how
Yeah.
you're doing that.
Well, I'll try to give a broad answer, but it's extremely applicable to your question.
Okay.
So local government is comprised of elected officials from the community, and each elected official has a worldview. So that particular individual's worldview is going to help, dictate what kind of decisions they make. And so when we say, we want to promote freedom and family and individual rights in the Constitution, we actually mean it. So one example would be if you looked at the wall back there, we have that constitutional county resolution that the board passed. And a great example of why do these things matter is just in our meeting this week. Did you see the video?
Yes, I saw Bergman.
Yeah, so we had one commissioner who interrupted public comment and demanded that I, as the chair, stop the public comment, the people at public comment from speaking certain things. And so he's asking, to censor their speech right out open in public, and that was the second time this year. So what did we do? We took a timeout, or we took a recess. And so we took 5 minutes, and everybody sat here, and I sat and wrote a statement. And then I asked everybody in the room, I said, please turn around and look at the wall and remember our commitment to the Constitution. We swore an oath to uphold it, to uphold our citizens' rights, and we will not violate people's right to free speech to come into this public forum and speak, and we will not violate our board rules either. And I think he actually got up and walked out of the room, I think. But, when you are in a leadership role that has an impact and an influence over 300,000 people, you need people who will act in a principled manner, and you have to understand what those principles are. And so, you can go to my website, or you can look at, Ottawa Impact's website, which lists out those principles. And we try to summarize that in a message that says, freedom and family and protecting kids, upholding individual rights. And we're so serious about it that, we have a board member try to censor the public speech during a meeting. We take a break and then we talk about it. So I hope that helps answer the question.
I did.
Yeah.
No, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, protecting kids obviously is one topic of discussion.
Yes.
Childhood innocence, that resolution that
Yes.
passed.
Yeah.
How have you seen that being successful?
Well, I think what is most helpful is we look back at 2022 and 2021 and some of how Ottawa County handled the government response to the pandemic and other things like that. And you saw very heavy-handed responses. We had our former county attorney, say flat out that parents who wanted to keep their kids in school had an ignorant, conservative political agenda. And I asked one former board member what he thought of the parents coming and advocating for their kids, whether it was related to government overreach, or maybe it was related to this DEI office that existed, or maybe it had to do with the Yaz survey and the over-sexualization of kids. His answer to my question of what do you think of all these parents coming to you was, it's a blip. And so what I had found in 21 and 22 was that our elected officials were not listening to us.
Okay. Because I remember during the childhood innocence, Sylvia brought up, and obviously I'll probably ask her when I get to that moment, and had to do with LGBTQ and the plus. I remember the plus, but also I had to deal with the drag queens being added.
Sure, yeah.
So the reason in the resolution it says we will not designate any funding that deals with the over-sexualization of children.
Right.
So
right, we want to make sure we're not pushing over-sexualization on our kids. And you can see a lot of examples in the media right now. If you go on social media or even just watch the news, yes, there are instances where there is a very strong push for a certain worldview that would tell kids that they can be any gender they want, that they could change their gender. Maybe they could even get surgery to change their gender. That type of those types of ideas are very dangerous and harmful to kids. And so we want to make sure that as a county, the county corporation itself, right, Ottawa County, not the 300,000 people who live in Ottawa County. Those people can make decisions for themselves and their families. But Ottawa County does not need to be spending taxpayer money to promote a certain left-wing ideology.
So compared to like the 2023, when right before that resolution was passed versus now, what have been the differences?
Are you talking about?
Like before that resolution,
do you remember the date of that resolution? Was that May?
At least after the
okay, it would have been after
Pride events in Grand.
Maybe it was August, possibly.
But it was at least it was. I know it was after those Pride events.
Yeah. So there's actually not a large difference between the beginning of 2023 and the end of 2023 or 2024, and that's because the board has remained largely the same, and so we are continuing to make decisions even in the same way as we were before we passed that resolution now and into the future. So
more or less it has continued as is. Like nothing has been stopped, nothing has been... like how have you done... You're
asking kind of how does board policy impact...
Yeah, like how did that resolution impact the goings of Ottawa County government?
Yes. So the most important thing that it did is it drew a line, it set a bar, it said, here's our standard. In the past, the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners has operated very loosely in many many situations. And so, if things didn't come up, or if they weren't challenged, or if they just happened, there was no way to see, what the standards were. So as a board, we are trying to continue to speak into important issues. And since we're responsible for oversight and governance, we're trying to make sure we are being very clear with the employees who work in Ottawa County, with the staff, to say, this is the direction that we're going.
The reason why I ask is
Yeah.
because the health department was still at the same Pride events.
Yeah, and, if you look back at, I think it was 2022, the health department had a really radical, sexuality guide for kids. And it was actually tweeted by Libs of TikTok. And even back then, Libs of TikTok was an extremely...
You talk about the Pride sticker?
No. They had hypersexualized content related to 3-year-olds.
Okay.
Yeah. You can go on OttawaImpact.com and I think search Libs of TikTok or something. It should pop up.
Okay.
And I remember they called this content that they had put out, this was before we were in office, but they called it a family guide. And it was giving information, fairly radical, progressive information about sexuality and young, 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, et cetera. What was okay at that age, what they should be, doing or interested in, that kind of thing. And, it became kind of a hot button issue. And the health department, very quickly scrambled and deleted all the content. Now, we had saved it all, so it's still out there. You can see how things were operating before this board, the new board, was elected. But we want to make sure that people are using common sense. They're not pushing hypersexualized activity or anything like that for kids. And that goes back to protecting kids, protecting families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about family.
Yeah.
What is the ideal family here in Ottawa County that you're trying to protect here? Because obviously,
great question.
I read
Yes.
your statement. You believe
Yeah.
in the Judeo-Christianity.
We want to protect every family, and we want every family to be able to raise and care for and educate their kids in the manner that they see fit.
Would that be even LGBTQ?
Doesn't matter who the family is in Ottawa County. I wouldn't label families as LGBTQ or things like that, but I would say we want to protect the rights of every single family. Just like in 2021, I wanted my rights protected, and instead Ottawa County said they were going to throw me in jail. I didn't appreciate that.
You are pro-Constitution, obviously.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that pro-Constitution stance. Are you talking about federal pro-Constitution, or are you talking more of Michigan Constitution?
So, if you look at the Constitutional County Resolution, I believe it actually lists both.
Okay.
But in general, we're focused on the individual rights that are, upheld and protected by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially, freedom of association, religious freedom, freedom of speech. We want to maximize freedom for everybody living in Ottawa County.
Obviously, the Common Legal Group deals with a lot of constitutional
Yes.
law. I remember you
Yes.
still stand firm with them
Yes.
back when I first interviewed you
Yeah.
early January. So now that we're almost 2 years in,
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
same?
Oh, love working with them. They are excellent. They brought in, an excellent former city attorney from Lansing, who I know you've talked to.
Yep.
And then they also are working with somebody who's local, who's from Ottawa County.
Lene.
Yep. And then they have additional people from their main office in Lansing, and they have I've written it on my website and said it many times. They are the top constitutional law firm in the state. They're very well known for their constitutional work, their work protecting homeschoolers, their work protecting, athletes. I believe they won a very big case during the government response to the pandemic.
The barber from Owasso.
And the barber, yes. Yeah.
But municipal, actually, let me get back to the number of people who work from the Common Legal Group here in Ottawa County, because obviously I've been FOIAing for invoices.
Oh, good, yeah.
How many people here work for,
In the legal department?
Yeah, the legal department. Who's corporate counsel from the Common Legal Group? when it comes to people who do county regular government?
Yeah, there's 2 people here, and then they also, I believe, have at least one county staff member as well who helps.
So not
Yeah.
part of the common legal group.
No, just I think hired through the county.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. All right, just want to make sure.
I think they've been here for many years.
Lisa,
I think.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, because I've obviously been following, I've been tracking their rates that they've been going.
Yep.
They're at $1 million.
Yep. Yeah. I would have to pull the numbers to see, but and check the budgets. Do you know what the budget was for this year?
I don't remember the exact number, but
Yeah.
obviously I think it was around 400 some odd thousand.
Okay, 400, 500, somewhere around there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
going on top
Yep.
of that, and again, I want to stress the fact that the $1 million
Yeah.
came from corporate counsel just doing
Yeah.
regular county government work,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then OCIA bill.
Oh, the insurance authority.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I just want to
Yeah.
clear that up for you.
Yeah, because there's two different parts. Yeah.
Cool. So knowing that $1 million has been billed to Ottawa County and the insurance authority,
Yep.
you're still on.
Absolutely. Yes.
Why do you think that price tag is needed here in Ottawa County?
Well, why wouldn't it be? We're a $250 million organization. I mean, we want to prioritize the very best legal that we can get for our residents. And so by using a group like the Common Legal Group, we have some significant advantages over the way that it used to be done. Ottawa County used to hire one individual and pay him about $400,000 a year.
Now, does that include the insurance authority?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Okay, just
Yeah.
want to make sure.
So before they paid one guy $400,000, and that's the guy who told me I had an ignorant conservative political agenda.
Okay.
Yeah. So are we paying a little bit more? Yeah, absolutely, because we are prioritizing it more, and we've brought in more people, and we've asked them to do more things. And also, you have the Democrats continually suing us for very ridiculous lawfare, and going along with exactly what Attorney General Dana Nessel recommended they do to us back in 2022 after we won our primaries. And they're simply using lawfare to create chaos as part of their strategy. Yeah.
So $400,000, you talked about one attorney getting that.
Yeah.
So the reason why I'm glad you brought that up,
Yeah.
when it comes to Jack and Lene, they're the ones who are doing corporate counsel. They're the ones who are, at least on the
Yes.
invoices, say municipal work. That
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So what about
Yeah.
Stephen and David?
Yeah. Yeah. What about them?
Like, what are they doing to handle municipal work here in Ottawa County? Because by the track of that I've looked at the invoices,
Yeah. Yeah.
in 2023 they only at least did billable hours for 5 months out of the year. In 2024, only Stephen has done one billable hour,
Yeah.
or one billable month. Sorry.
Yeah. So one thing that you should know is that when they are working 2, 3, or 4 attorneys at a time, they're only billing for one attorney.
Correct. I remember Jack explained that to me.
Yes. So the amount of value that their firm brings to Ottawa County residents is huge. Yeah.
So the biggest bill usually is not the OCIA, which is $200,000 to $300,000 some odd thousand. Obviously, it's corporate counsel that's about $700,000, at least since they took over on January 3rd to now.
Yeah.
But Jack and Lene are usually the ones who are doing most of the work.
Yeah.
They work only 3 days a week.
Well, they're on call 7 days a week, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If I call them on a Sunday, they'll answer.
Cool. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Another thing
Yeah.
when it came to, I'm glad you brought up the.
One quick question. So you're saying that like maybe they're a couple $100,000 in the insurance authority and 600,000 or 700,000
For corporate counsel.
For corporate counsel.
January 3rd of 2023 to now.
So if you look at the cost for corporate counsel, if it was $400,000 a year before, now it's.
Remember, that was also the OCIA.
Oh, yes, it was. Yeah. Yeah.
Just want to make sure we're on the same
Yeah.
page.
So.
Because I looked at the audit. The audit for one
Yeah.
attorney was around $220,000, I believe, in 2021. I can't remember 2022.
Yeah,
but
I had pulled all those numbers at one point to look at it. Yeah.
love to take those
Yeah.
numbers in.
And I can say, at least for this year, one of the things that we've noticed is that from a county perspective, we're currently on budget with our corporate counsel spending.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Budget for corporate counsel.
Yep. Yeah,
So
and they've worked very hard to try to make sure that as best as possible we stay within that. They have a huge amount of work they've been doing to revamp the processes in the county. Things were, I mean, they only had one person before, and he'd been here for a long time, and may or may not have been doing the best job. He was real good at threatening parents and closing schools and things like that, but they have had to revamp a lot of the processes inside the county. One thing they've done is they've standardized a lot of the contracts. There was contract language all over the place. And so now, when things come in to me, because in a lot of cases I'm signing a lot of the documents, now I can be a lot more sure that the contracts for Ottawa County are protecting the citizens in a much better way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up Dana Nessel in 2022. Obviously, that's an OMA violation that Dana Nessel has ruled that did not violate OMA.
No, there was no OMA violation.
Correct. So
right. Yeah.
correct. There was no OMA.
That's a media narrative that got spun just over and over and over and over. Yeah.
Obviously, they're filing up to the Supreme Court. So obviously, that's still.
Yes, we got sued by.
Armstrong.
Yes, a few different people.
Yes.
Yeah. You could call them political opponents. Yeah, they don't like us very much. And they sued, claiming that there were 2 boards of commissioners in Ottawa County in 2022.
So on that note,
they lost their lawsuit.
Obviously, I remember you had mentioned that
Yeah.
you read a bunch of OMA law before.
Oh yes, yeah.
So explain to me, how did January 3rd
Yeah.
happen, where you have David Coleman in the back, you had Nathaniel Kelly in the back,
Yeah.
and you had someone else, the DEI department closure.
Oh yeah, and we also changed the motto.
Motto, yes.
Yes, yeah. You can go back to the January 3 meeting minutes and look at all the resolutions. Yes.
But
so how did it happen?
Yeah, what led up to that moment?
So I'll try to do a really short answer as best I can. From the beginning of 2021 through most of that year, we had dozens and dozens and dozens of parents come into this room and advocate for their families and for their kids. And we had the gentlemen sitting around the dais here flatly ignore them. So then the parents began to plan. They created organizations. I was one of them, okay. Yes. And really, the parents began to plan, they began to write, they wrote example resolutions and asked the board to pass them to restore our constitutional freedoms, really to recognize and protect them, and they were still ignored. And so at one point, we had 1,000 people in the building right outside the door there, and the members of the board just completely ignore them. In fact, they tried to prevent us from entering the building illegally, and then they also knocked our public comment time down to 1 minute. We had 60 seconds, yeah. So we realized during that time that our elected officials were absolutely not going to listen to us. They could not hear anything we were saying, and they were out of touch. And so we started to work, and there were dozens and there were hundreds of parents who came together and formed parent groups and Ottawa Impact and things like that. And we began to advocate, and we found candidates and vetted and helped them run. And then by the time we got to the August election in 22, we had informed much of our community. We had explained our vision for the future. We had laid it out in very specific detail on what we would do. We talked about it. We went to public forums. We door knocked tens of thousands of doors and explained it. And then we won the primaries in August. We prepped for November. We got through November and won in November as well. And from around that time all the way up until January, we were still not in office, but we had additional time to then plan and execute the specific vision, the contract with Ottawa that we had promised the people that we would do. And so when we got into office and we were sworn in, we simply did what we promised we would do.
But did it feel right to hire and fire people before having that open discussion?
we had a significant amount, a year's worth of open discussion with the community. And so, but let me answer it in another way too. It was actually difficult to do.
What do you mean?
Well, we were coming in and we were parents and we knew that we had promised the people that we would make change, but making change is difficult. Firing someone is difficult. We already knew that corporate counsel had, submitted his resignation and said he was going to be moving on. It was the best thing for us to do, to be able to accept his resignation and have someone else ready to at least on a short-term basis take his position. So you could say what we did is we prepared for what we knew we had to do.
And John Gibbs being one of them?
Yes, definitely, yeah. And John Shea was the former administrator who was Lego.
Right.
Yeah.
Looking back now, hiring John Gibbs.
Yes, yeah, we did, yeah.
Kid.
Much loved candidate from Ottawa County, very conservative, maybe a little bit of a bull in a china shop sometimes. Yep.
Can you say much? Because is he still currently suing?
I think there's pending litigation, but I mean, I can talk about it and answer questions. I mean, I enjoyed working with John, and he, there were some things that happened that maybe were not the best, and so, the board voted to terminate him.
Why did you line up on John Gibbs? And obviously...
Oh, easy question. So he won the vote in Ottawa for his election. He was very connected with, local conservatives. He was very well liked in the Republican Party. And so he was really, because he had worked in Washington, he worked with Ben Carson, and he had worked in HUD and had a lot of experience with housing, and he worked with some pretty big names on the 1776 Commission. He seemed like a great fit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, when it comes to budget, you mentioned you have a $265 million budget.
Mm-hmm.
Why not move forward? Because obviously I remember I did that story about requesting the Ottawa food.
Yeah.
Just bring the request to us. We'll look at it.
Yeah.
Why hasn't that been done?
I'm not sure I know what you mean. Why hasn't it been done?
Why hasn't the board taken up a vote on because the health department has made the request for that Ottawa food coordinator to be...
Well, they made it months after their budget. Yeah.
But even you said during the meetings when it came to time for budget that budgets get amended.
Oh, they do. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, we're frequently amending budgets or making adjustments. Yeah. A lot of it probably, I want to say all, but I guess it's probably 99% comes straight from the county. Yeah. They pass it to the board reviews it and makes a decision. Yeah.
So why not bring it up again?
It's a good question. A couple of the other commissioners have had some really good answers on this. Gretchen Cosby has a great answer, and I'll try to summarize it.
I would love to hear your answer.
Yes. Well, I mean, her answer is a great answer, so I'm going to do my best to try to explain it. When we gave the health department the second highest budget that they've ever had, they chose to allocate it in a certain way, and they did not include that particular position. And so they came back much later after we had asked many times for more information and finally provided it. But you can look at what they did between those 2 points too. They fed it to the media and created a frenzy. I mean, you're asking me about it right now.
Yeah, it's
right.
It's a valid question.
And what we're talking about is a coordinator position that was like helping coordinate, outside organizations.
Yeah.
We had people come to us and say, why are you taking food away from babies? Right? We actually, I think, had the health officer say that to us. And some other people in the county who are also political opponents. But there was a lot of narrative crafted around this issue, trying to make it seem like more than it was. If you go out and talk to those organizations, they're still serving the community. They didn't stop. People didn't go hungry. Kids didn't die. this was a single, I don't know if it was part-time or some kind of coordinating position with Ottawa County that was very separate from the rest of what was going on in the community. And they're still going. And there's other services in Ottawa County that are doing almost the exact same thing. And I think part of the reason why it didn't come back, because there was duplication of services. And we want to make sure we're spending taxpayer dollars in the best way possible. And so sometimes that means making adjustments.
On that note, for the budget when it comes to the health department,
Yeah.
you said the second highest.
Yes.
You obviously know that that includes grant funding, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. The second highest budget for the health department. Yeah.
But that's also because of grants coming in.
No, it's always because
So
of
it's not
grants
like, well,
coming
like
in. Yeah.
14 million isn't just all general fund amount.
Oh no, it's maybe 6 or 7 million general fund, and the rest is grants. Yeah, that's how it always is. Yeah.
Obviously, remember that you also had to dip into the rainy fund that they usually have, right?
No, we actually. Oh yes, yeah. They had surplus funds from prior years that they hadn't used, which are general funds.
Right.
So we actually instituted a new policy this year to make that.
Just the last meeting, or was it 2 meetings ago?
Oh, it hasn't even been finally voted on yet. It was this last meeting, and it's going to come up again at the next one. But it's a great example of how we're trying to clean things up. We had people like yourself say, you had to dip into their rainy day fund. I mean, that's a narrative. That's not accurate as to what is actually happening. That's a way to say it sounds like, you didn't do your job, so you got to go get into your savings account. Well, they don't have a savings account. They had excess funds from prior years that were unallocated that should have been back in the general fund. So what the board is doing right now, with administration's help, is clarifying so that we don't have unallocated general funds sitting around in people's budgets year after year.
So what do you say to departments who go over budget?
Stay within budget. Yeah. But if they do go over budget, and there's sometimes legitimate reasons, the county has contingency funds and is in excellent financial health. And we have over $200 million in assets. And so there's really no, we're very blessed. We don't have financial problems. We have a lot of resources. We have enough resources where we can do things like expand the Veterans Department or buy body cameras. I mean, that's a huge investment in the Sheriff's Department that goes through the board. That's us spending taxpayer dollars. So we are very blessed to be in a very healthy, financial position.
Speak about a financial position that was put into jeopardy. The $4 million settlement agreement.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've read your post.
Yes.
You said it was a phantom deal.
So what kind of jeopardy do you mean?
What would happen if the $4 million was actually paid out?
Well, I guess you could say, what could have happened if $1 million got paid out, or $8 million, or whatever other numbers are floating around out there. The county would have paid it. Yeah, out of our millions and millions of dollars that are in the bank account.
The OCIA account. That would go through the OCIA?
Or well, I mean, it could be county, it could be OICA, it could be whatever. I mean, the county got $6.5 million in a settlement this year. It could have come out of that. It could come out of a lot of things. Yeah.
What's $6 million settlement?
Let me try to remember the name. Monsanto. There was a corporation operating in the area. They seemed to have done something that someone didn't like, and they got sued. I think there might have been a class action lawsuit. And in the end, they received a judgment that they had to pay fines and fees that would go to the counties in Michigan that were affected. So they kind of did some sort of analysis, and they thought maybe Ottawa County was affected somehow by something this corporation did. So one day a check showed up for $6.5 million.
What is the plan with that money?
So we've already used some of it. We have allocated some to a revolving loan fund with the Water Resources Commissioner. That is going to save somewhere around $100,000 a year by doing that. And there was one other thing we did with it too. We're doing kind of a first in the state water monitoring and testing system and working with some other organizations locally to really continue to work on water quality and testing issues in the county. Yeah.
Now,
And again, that's a really great opportunity to say, like, we are extremely blessed. Other counties are not able to do the things that we've been able to do, and partially it's because of how blessed we are in Ottawa County.
sorry to get sidetracked on that. Let's go back.
It's okay. Yeah.
Go back to the $4 million.
Yes.
So tell me,
Yeah.
you say phantom deal,
Yeah.
but the judge is saying there was a deal
I don't know if the judge is saying there was. See, actually,
or an agreement.
okay. So here's another good example. You just seem to make the claim that a judge decided there was a deal. Well, actually,
she looked at the meeting that happened, obviously behind closed doors.
and then what was her decision?
There was a deal.
No, what was her ruling?
That they can't,
That there was no deal.
That they can't be it can't be enforced.
Because there was no deal, right? Yeah, correct. Like there was never a vote by the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners to pay anybody $4 million or $8 million or $42 million.
But there was a vote here.
Yes, there was. Yes.
There was an quote ambiguous.
So would you like to know what that vote was for?
Yes.
Okay, so that vote was.
Explain to me other than the quote what you said at that chair.
Yes. So what I have to be careful with the language because I don't want to violate the closed session. Some people don't seem to care too much, but I try to follow the law. When the board voted to, accept a recommendation, right?
Council, yes.
It was to continue the process that we were already in. So we were probably halfway through that process, and certain people wanted to cut it off right there and demand $4 million or $8 or whatever it was. But that was literally not the case. And so now you have 100 news articles about it, pounding a narrative that's not true, and now even you think that it's true.
Well, I mean, the judge said that there was a deal. But the thing is, she couldn't enforce it because of that.
Because there was no deal. Right.
So is the judge saying, you're saying the judge is wrong that there was no deal?
No, I'm saying the judge is right because there was no deal, no agreement. It wasn't voted on. There was nothing written down. There was nothing there. We were continuing the process, which we then did, and the net result was what has happened. The health officer is retained, and she was paid $0, and onward we go. Yeah. Oh, battery?
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry, a long discussion.
What time is it? We gotta. Oh, I'm okay. I got till 3.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Good. Okay. Yeah.
So that confuses me a lot because the thing is, you have a judge who had a closed door court session where the county clerk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wasn't there. Yeah.
Yes, obviously you sat outside.
Yeah.
We all sat outside because he was on the stand.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, after lunch, there was another further discussion, and then the hearing was over.
Yeah, I believe what happened was they heard testimony from one witness, and it was clear enough that there was no $4 million deal, and they didn't even call us to testify. I was there to testify, actually.
But the judge said there was a deal.
The judge said there was no deal, and that there's nothing enforceable, and there was no...
Enforceable, yes. There was nothing forcible.
Correct, because there was nothing... There was actually no vote by the county board.
There was a vote.
Well,
but it was to continue the recommendation by the corporate council. Yes, I can.
Right. So we vote. We have very specific legal processes we have to follow. So when we come out of closed session, for instance, and we're going to continue a process that we're currently in, you could vote to continue that process. So that's what we did, and we then,
drum up a written.
We then continue
documentation that says $4 million.
Well, we had nothing in writing at that point whatsoever.
At that moment, yes, but
Correct.
later on, throughout the days there was.
Oh, so I think they started trying to draft things up and try to figure out like where we were going, and we kind of figured. I have to try to be careful how I say this. I was planning on 3 or 4 more closed sessions to continue the negotiating process and figure out how to move forward. And I think at the end of the day, we got to a good place.
Okay.
Yeah. But no thanks to the media, which then just hounded and spun narrative after narrative. Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's narrative. It's more questions though, but I appreciate that discussion.
Yep.
Talk to me. Obviously, something that has come to light recently is
Yes.
the MSU extension.
Oh, I should have worn an MSU shirt.
Go green.
No, just a troll.
What happened with the MSU extension contract?
The board passed it.
But I want to be honest with you. Obviously, I haven't been able to follow this as much as
That's
Sarah
okay.
Leach has been following this.
Sure.
Obviously, I know your
Sure.
opinion on Sarah Leach.
Journalist, liar, yeah.
She commented in her article, or she wrote about in her article, that usually the MSU extension is done in October, late October, but it took until January. Why did it take so much longer than usual?
Well, I don't know if it took longer than usual. I don't know if they had done it in October or November or December. I wasn't here in prior years. We're not doing things the same way as they were done in prior years. We're being a lot more careful. And so, I mean, it got done and there was no interruption in service or anything like that. We just continued on.
So what did you have to be more careful about with this contract this time
Well,
through?
we're always careful with contracts. I joke and say, I don't joke, but it feels like a joke. I read everything that comes through. I mean, it's a significant number of documents. Some weeks it's like 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 contracts. These things are maybe 2 pages long or maybe 30 pages long. But we're always trying to be extra careful and make sure that we are going the right direction. Yeah, and using taxpayer resources wisely, and taking all of what the county needs into account.
So explain to me.
Yeah.
So obviously, I heard the recording from.
One of the
Have you heard
commissioners. I didn't really hear it. I heard bits and pieces. I had someone send me a part where, Mr. Kleinjans talked about being genetically superior to the black and brown.
I've reached out to him for that comment.
Yeah.
But let's go about the fact that you and Mi'kmaq had met up with the MSU extension.
Oh yeah, she was on MSU Extension Council or something. Yeah. Yep.
So explain to me how that interaction with MSU extension went, because obviously I've heard the recording where they say that it involved Chris not being with the MSU extension because you feared his how he might vote.
Vote. Okay, I'm not sure what that means.
To the board.
Oh, are you talking about incompatible offices? Is that what you're referring to?
No.
Okay, so the reason why I'm not part of MSU and haven't paid too much attention to this, but I believe what the situation is when Mr. Kleinjans became a commissioner, he could not fulfill the roles of a board member and a subsidiary employee. Like, you can't oversee yourself.
Why?
Because of Michigan law.
Okay.
Yeah. At least I think that's what MSU said. And so I think they asked to put him on leave or something. Yeah.
So where was your stance on it? Because obviously I heard their opinion or their discussion about him.
Yeah, that happened recently. I mean, that was, I don't know when the recordings were from, but it was, I think, months after.
Following through to now, yeah.
Oh, it was months after their contract, yeah.
It came out months after the contract. But then
Well, no, I think all this stuff with MSU happened, recently.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's been what, 7 months since their contract was approved.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, those are totally separate issues.
So you have no quorums of him being on the MSU extension and then being on this board.
Oh no, it's illegal. You can't be on MSU extension and be a board member.
But what about like all the other contracts that usually a commissioner would handle?
Right. So.
Good example.
Good example.
You could abstain for that, right? from anything dealing with MSU Extension?
Well, let me ask a question, then I'll try to answer that specifically, because I think the answer is no. Could Ottawa County, for example, hire one of my companies to do work and maybe pay me, pick a number, 20 grand? I mean, is that legal?
Could be up for discussion, that's for sure.
Actually, it is up for discussion. I believe it actually is legal, and you would probably very easily argue unethical. But let's say we lived in a very small county that had 5,000 people, and there was one guy who was on the board who poured all the concrete in the county. I believe the board could actually vote to hire that person and pay them any amount of money to pour concrete for the county as long as that individual abstained. Yeah.
So in theory, that can't happen to Chris, can he?
No, I don't think so. Because MSU Extension, I believe, is governed by MCL. And so in Michigan law, it says that when like a government entity is overseeing another government entity, it's an incompatible office or something like that. So I don't know the exact details. I mean, MSU has lawyer after lawyer. I think they're like $1 billion organization.
Yep.
So I think they know what they're talking about.
So you did not have, so did you put any kind of pressure on that decision?
For them to,
because obviously I've heard
so they want,
his attorney explain that Ottawa Impact had put pressure on MSU Extension.
Yeah, I mean,
you're obviously the founder.
I don't know what that means. Ottawa Impact didn't put pressure on anybody.
You being Joe.
Oh,
you're the founder.
Well, I'm fairly. Yeah, I guess I don't know what they're talking about, and definitely Ottawa Impact had nothing to do with it. And they're. I think we're talking about things that happened 6 or 7 months apart that are totally separate, right? They had a contract that came up and that was renewed. He then decided to run for office, ran for office, was elected, and I think in one of the recordings, didn't he say he would resign if he won his seat? I think he did, but now apparently he would rather sue them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But on the note, when it comes to voting for something that they are aligned with or part of, why did you feel okay to vote for the Coleman Legal Group for to be the corporate counsel here?
Because they are the top constitutional attorney, law firm in the state.
What about municipal law?
Yeah, and they have excellent municipal experience, and they have, a former Lansing.
Take Jack out.
How do you take Jack out?
But I mean,
he's our corporate counsel.
Yes, but I mean, if you didn't have Jack.
If they didn't have Jack, well, maybe we would have found somebody else. Okay. But they have excellent resources at their disposal, and they are highly qualified attorneys. So I'm really, really glad that they could provide the resources we need.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I have taken so much of your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add in? That I might have missed or you might want to bring up?
Sure. How about have you investigated this $42 million lie? We got the $4 million lie, now we got the $42 million lie. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen the billboard.
Yeah. So have you seen what's going on behind the scenes? Or have you heard the details?
PAC stuff?
Yeah. So it seems like there's a lot of big money coming into Ottawa County specifically to spread lies. So in that billboard example, some dark money group somewhere is saying that the Board of Commissioners spent $42 million and somehow it was wrong, right? Mm-hmm. The ironic part about that, they're saying $42 million since 2022. The board wasn't in office in 2022, yep. Right? So what actually the truth is the prior board did have a budget increase, which is not necessarily bad, but it was $33 million. And when we passed the budget last year, we had an increase of about $9 million. So our increase was actually the smallest one in the last 5 or plus years. Also, that's that just is what it is. It's not good or bad, but what we see happening is people trying to with some sort of malice in their motives, try to attribute a lie just to malign the current board. So I find that so interesting that they would just so flagrantly, blatantly be spending tens of thousands of dollars to lie to people in Ottawa County.
Obviously, a lot of national attention is definitely on Ottawa County.
Yes, yes. Gavin Newsom was in last week.
Yes, he was.
Yes, and I think Jill Biden last week as well.
Jill Biden was also in West Michigan as well.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts about dark money?
Yeah. What do you mean, what's my thoughts? I think that people should not be lying and using dark money to do it.
So dark money, you wouldn't accept dark money?
What do you mean by dark money?
Like dark money, explain your definition of dark money.
So when someone is spending money to influence an election, it's supposed to be done through a PAC.
Right.
Those expenditures are then publicly reported.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure those groups that are putting up these billboards are using 501c4s, which do not have to report their donors or their expenditures. So dark. Yeah.
Dark. So
and they're lying.
You wouldn't do anything with dark money yourself?
Not in that way. No, I would not lie to people in Ottawa County. Right. And I think it's really horrible that they're doing that. Yeah.
Perfect. That's it.